one and a half years to actually come out with this concept. Almost 20 designs were made before we zeroed in on this. And I must thank Keshavji for a painstaking effort. Thank you.
So, namaste again, hello again, here I am. Maybe you're getting too much of me, but I promise you this is the last one. And Venkatesh ji will be there to keep your interest. We are going to be discussing statecraft. And as you may have guessed, my all-consuming interest in statecraft comes from reading not just Kautilya's Arthashastra, but all the Purans, which have this element, also the Kural, and also other people who have written after Kautilya. So I think what will happen here is that I will talk about the past, Venkatesh ji will talk about contemporary reality, about India today and in the past 70 years or during the British period. And in the end or during the discussion, you may be able to see a kind of melding of the past and the present, at least that is what I hope. So I will just start a little bit, just some opening remarks before I throw the ball in his court. Statecraft or Niti Shastra is one of the most important Shastras that all rulers of India had to learn. And Niti Shastra is supposed to have come from Brahma. Then it came to Prajapati, it came to Lord Shankar, and it was done by various different intellectual rishis, and it became smaller and smaller and honed to greater focus on humanity. And then we have the different Arthashastra manuals. There are 14 of them mentioned in Kautilya's Arthashastra. He mentions 14 teachers. So you see that the tradition of Niti Shastra, statecraft, is a deep, wide and intense one in our own Vedic Hindu tradition. And I will also say Indic tradition, although the word was just dissed some time ago, because the Buddhists and the Jains also have a very strong tradition. We will perhaps start with a discussion of democracy. Democracy in ancient India, democracy at the present. But since I think it would be good to have Venkatesh ji's ideas also, perhaps let's start with talking about democracy today in India, and then I'll talk a little about the past.
You talked about so much of literature available in the Indian traditions about statecraft. My mind goes to Friday the 13th, December 13th, Friday 1946. And Friday the 13th has got a Christian connotation. That is the day on which Nehru brings in the aims and objectives resolution in the Constitution Assembly. That is why we are all suffering from what is called as perestroika triophobia. There is a fear of Friday the 13th. And in that resolution, not one word about all that you spoke. A wasted breath, I would say, for you. Because right through the next 3 years, when we made the Constitution between 1946 to 1949, November 26th, when it was closed, we said, look at France, look at Ireland, look at Germany, look at Italy. I don't know why we started looking at Italy so early. Okay. Then look at America. So we said, we the people from America. Then liberty, fraternity, equality from France. Then the Constitution had this whole issue about democracy being from Greece and wherever. And nothing was even referred to in passing for this civilization which has existed for a minimum of 5,000 to 10,000 years. Not even in the passing. So, answering your question about democracy, it was as if it came from the west. And I stay in a place, my home is in a place south of Chennai, it's Nilangarai. And as the crow flies 60 kilometers to a town called Uttaramerur, the inscriptions of Uttaramerur, of which books have been written, show the level of democracy that was prevalent in Tamil Nadu some 2000 years back, 1500 years back, the level of democracy. In fact, the Election Commission can borrow the entire manual of Uttaramerur inscriptions and put it in its website. It will be so contemporary. But what we are taught in the first year of law colleges is demos comes from Greece, and democracy was given by the Greece, and but for democracy the world would be still a jungle. The problem is not, the previous session was about the enemies without. The problem is the enemies within. And holding, as Kandariji said, holding powers of high eminence in this country. That is the problem.
I will just add a little bit more to that. He very rightly mentioned the Uttaramerur inscriptions. But the roots of democracy in our country go far, 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 far back. And the whole idea, if you remember, I explained the Saptanga state and the role of the king. Now, to untutored eyes, it seems as though it was a monarchy. But what was that monarchy like? Was the king some kind of whimsical person, you know, like in Alice in Wonderland, you have the Red Queen, off with his head if I'm angry with him. Was it that kind of whimsical, totalitarian, autocratic rule? Absolutely not. The conduct of the king is written down in various manuals and was also explained to him through oral as well as familial methods. And there was the injunction on the king to consult with all his amatyas, that is the administration, everyone important, and not do anything without consultation. And here in passing, although it's not the subject, we must remember that the Queen Mother and the Queen were also part of that internal consultation mechanism. So you had the voice of women too. The king was, in effect, a person who ruled for the people, by the people is very late. We have that shlok from the Arthashastra which says, in the happiness of the people lies the happiness of the king. What pleases the people pleases the king. It's not his own selfish aims which are important. So what does this encapsulate? In monarchy itself, it encapsulates the tenets of democracy, which is the welfare of the people. So this thinking, this Western thinking of monarchs, Democrats as separate, is something that our thinking has not agreed with. Again, I could go on to telling you how democracy has been mentioned in Panini, in so many of the earlier texts that we have. I won't do that. I'll just tell you one story. The story is of Amrapali. You may have heard her name. She was one of the most beautiful women in history. And she was a courtesan, a Ganika. Please don't think of her as a sex worker. She was much more than that. She was a Ganika. You can Google that word and find out what it means. And she was a Ganika from Vaishali. What was Vaishali? In around the 6th century before the Common Era, Vaishali was the leader of the democratic kingdoms of India. And their fight was with Magad. What was Magad? Magad was the one which espoused monarchy. So the Gana Sanghas, of which there is a whole list of Gana Sanghas, which is democracies, mentioned not just in the Arthashastra but also in our Itihas. These Gana Sanghas were, the most important were the Lichavis. Their importance remained even till the time of the Guptas. But anyway, she had a romance with the king of Magad. And in this romance was encapsulated the fight between the Lichavis of Vaishali and Magad. That means democracy and Ganasangha versus monarchy. And it was the way that Magad won which gave our political institutions the turn towards monarchy, although it was a very democratic monarchy. Otherwise, Gana Sanghas, where people were chosen from the tribe itself and together ran the tribe, ran the kingdom, was a very important institution in ancient India. So all this stuff about democracy coming from outside is absolute nonsense. And it has only, you just have to study a few of our texts to understand that democracy is so rooted in India. Coming to 1947, when the British left, so India's demise was predicted, that this country is going to fall apart. How come all of us adopted and adapted to voting and to this kind of setup so quickly, so easily? What was it? That's because this kind of voice of the people is in our very genes. So that is something that is food for thought. And now moving on, maybe you would like to give us some contemporary ideas about the constitution, maybe from your book, and this whole idea of a Christian constitution in a Hindu nation, and then we'll go back to discussing statecraft a bit.
Thank you. When the British left, yesterday was the 150th birth anniversary of Sardar Patel. And when the British left, there are around 565 states, princely states. So if ladies can pardon me, India looked like a rava dosa, torn in between, perforated and looked completely broken and had no shape or size. And it was to the eternal credit of Sardar Patel that he brought 565 samasthanams and welded into a nation. That is politically, not otherwise. Politically, he gave a contour and he brought it all together. And of which two, Junagadh and Hyderabad, played truant, and he had to raise his little finger and flex it to bring them online. That's part of history. But the point is, none of the kings or any Hindu Raja, Maharajas, had a problem aligning with India. The accession document, if you see, it's very uniform. It is as simple as a rental agreement between a landlord and a tenant. I'm giving my whole samasthanam to this country and I'm aligning. The reason for that, despite the fact that there were several tumultuous happenings in the political sphere, the sociological order was by and large preserved. The society was well and truly preserved for a variety of reasons. And I ask always a question, that nation was so predominant, that Bharatvarsha was so predominant, that coming from deep south, nobody took a sankalpa. The Bharatavarsha Bharatakande is the sankalpa that we took. Never we said Chola Rajye, Kanishka Rajye, Harshavardhana Rajye. Okay? We always said Bharatavarsha Bharatakande, and for me, the Kedarnath is as important as Tiruvannamalai. And Ma Kali at Calcutta is as important as Ma Meenakshi. So this was what welded the nation into, the geography into a nation. And with just 25 or 30 such small kingdoms, which were predominantly Catholic and Protestant in Germany, speaking the same language, Bismarck found it difficult to make Germany out of it. Now think about it like what we are. Broken into several languages, several difficult geographies, customs, religion, to weld it into one political unity, it just took 2 to 3 years. And that 2 to 3 years was predominantly because two people played truant. One was the Nizam of Hyderabad, and one was, of course, Sheikh Abdullah. And both were not following the Indic traditions. And see how we welded it. And that is why I find it amusing when people say that nobody says, India tere tukde tukde kar denge. Bharat tere tukde honge. Inshallah, inshallah. December 2016, that was the famous statement made in Jawaharlal Nehru University. And Nehru himself, in the Tryst of Destiny speech, says the soul of a nation long suppressed will finally find its utterances. He sees this as a nation. Nehru, who is supposed to be an agnostic,
Who was discovering India.
Discovering India, and who in Discovery of India says there is nothing called a soul, nothing called a nation, on 15th of August himself becomes a convert and says and plays rich obeisance to this country, this nation, and the soul of this nation. So to put this nation into some box and box it and try to define it in the Westphalian sense or the Western sense or the American idioms is going to be extremely difficult unless we start speaking in Indian idioms and Indian languages. And for starters, you asked me about my book. I have said that it must be written in any language but English. When you rewrite, you start writing in Tamil, Kannada, Urdu, any Indian language. I have no problem. But when you write it in Indian language, you will be able to focus on words like dharma, karma, all these things which have got absolute resonance with the audience. You will become Bharatiyas. You have seen that movie, no? That multiple personality disorder of Onion, where he suffers from, we Indians suffer from multiple personality disorders. So we are Indians when we speak in English, and we become Bharatiyas when we speak in Tamil or Marathi or Kannada. So we are constantly trying to find our identity. And this is where I think I pitched in my book as to why we are duty bound for the next generation. We are duty bound to the next generation to rewrite our constitution.
So very interesting that you said that, Venkatesh ji. Pankaj ji also mentioned the centrality of unity. Not unity in diversity, but diversity in unity. I think the same ideas are getting echoed over here. So in this too, we can see that all of us go back to the same substratum. The topic of this particular discussion between us is statecraft. So I will go back to a bit of statecraft and talk about statecraft in the sense of how do states come into being. So you have the, Hobbesian bargain where you give up your freedom for security. What is the Indian idea? Why did a state come into being? So the Indian idea has much more welfare in it. It is to save the weak from Matsya Nyaya. The big fish should not eat the small fish. That is why you have to have somebody who can wield the dand. And the dand here means justice rather than just the army. The dand is in the concept of justice. And it was very much in the news with the Sengol. And I remember writing a lot about it, both from the Arthashastra and from the Kural, where the ideas of Dand and the Sengol and justice are all the same. So our statecraft is based on the welfare of people. What is Western statecraft based on? One very famous book is The Prince by Machiavelli. This is, there is a misnomer that Kautilya was the Machiavelli of India. This was said first by Max Weber, echoed by
just
Nehru.
like Shakespeare is the...
Kalidas is the Shakespeare.
Sorry, yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous way of putting it. Yes. So, in the Western ideas of kingship and sovereignty, it's all about power grab. It's all about control. It's all about ownership of that piece of land. And states came into being, according to many theoreticians such as Michel Foucault, when people became, there was a critical mass of population, there was some technology increase, and people refused to accept the sovereignty of the prince as the owner of everything. And they did some kind of negotiation, and the modern state came into being, the Westphalian state, as you were mentioning. For us, it's not like that. Again, as I had mentioned last time, the whole idea is in the last discussion, the whole idea is the welfare of the people. It is in that the happiness of the king lies. All the 7 Prakritis must work together for the welfare of the people. This basic tenet of statecraft has stayed with us, whether it be Mauryan times, when Kautilya was guiding Chandragupta, or whether it be Shivaji Maharaj, or whether it be the Vijayanagar kingdom. this was very much there. Western narrative says that the Arthashastra and all its ideas were lost and then only discovered in the early 20th century. Some research will tell you that it was not so. It remained very much a piece of our statecraft. Now that statecraft has been completely ignored in making the constitution as it was. So would you like to shed some light on it?
Yeah. I believe there is a project called Project Romanization. Now, Project Romanization, or what I call as the discovery, is basically an idea that flows from a papal order of 1494, where the Pope orders Christian kings in Europe to discover new lands. I do not know whether Nehruji had an idea about discovery when he thought about discovery of India. But discovery meant discover new heathen lands and convert them into Christian lands. And that is why we had discovery of America by Vasco da Gama. And that's why Portugal, we have East India Company by the British, by the Portuguese, by the French, by the German. But there are at least 7 East India companies that I could actually figure it out, who all came trying to discover India. And when they discovered India, what we are taught is that they came for trade. That is the biggest nonsense that we have just peddled. They came to propagate Christianity.
So it's called God, Glory and Gold.
Yes. And then that remnant of Christianity, which has been firmly embedded into our system, education, thought, legal, it's massified. That, believe me or not, we are all Christians. Hallelujah. Okay? It's not a laughing matter. It's a very serious and a sorry state of affairs that we don't even realize that we have all become Christianized to such an extent that we don't, even a judgment like Sabrimala doesn't revolt the people. And it has been termed as constitutional morality. The words constitutional morality figures prominently in that judgment of how a civilization which had its own restraints on fecund women from entering a temple, a shrine, for thousands of years is sought to be broken through a constitutional mandate. Now, this is what I call the colonialism at play, or Project Romanization well and truly at play. And the worst part is that we don't realize it.
So maybe, 2 more points that we would discuss. India has been for the past 1,000 years land which has been invaded, which has been colonized, and a lot of its own institutions have been in fact either destroyed or modified, but at the base something remains. There is that something which ties us all together. Again, I will refer back to what Pankaj ji said. There are some commonalities. That is how all of us identify, no matter which part of the country we come from. And that is what still makes us come together. So what have been the results of this kind of invasion? They have been quite a few. Sometimes the nature of the kingdoms has changed, although they still try to retain the old ideas and the old frameworks. And if even you look at the way cities were made, look at the city of Jaipur. Jaipur is perhaps the only existent city today which has been designed the Hindu way. Otherwise, look at all other cities. They are not designed the Hindu way at all. There is a way of designing it which is again given in my favorite book, the Arthashastra. There's a total blueprint of how a city should be designed. So the invasions have had a very negative impact on the whole, on our statecraft. What is your opinion on this, Venkateshji?
See, as I said, the constitution is a patch magic. Actually, had there been a Word, Microsoft Word were available, we could have written the constitution in 2 or 3 days if you had a good typist. Okay.
Control C,
In fact, one of my chapter is Control V, Control C. Because if you take the 1935 Act, and I have done that on purpose, 1935 Act, I have quoted verbatim on left-hand side and the Constitution on the right-hand side.
Yes.
It mirrors word for word, except that there has been some changes, like the President now was formerly was called the Governor General, now it is the President. Formerly the Advocate General was called the Attorney General, the Attorney General was called the Advocate General. So they have made some cosmetic changes. They have put a lipstick on the chimpanzee, that's all. And pass it off as some beautiful woman. We are not impressed. But the problem is we have elevated this constitution to the level of Bible and Quran. Single book. No discussion. Oh, this is Ambedkar's constitution, and Ambedkar in 53 said, I will burn this constitution. Nobody quotes that. Ambedkar was very clear, he would burn this constitution. It is in the records of the Rajya Sabha. Now, unfortunately, what is happening is we are stemming all debates on the constitution across political lines. On this, I find almost a near perfect unity amongst politicians that the constitution should not be disturbed. The constitution has also put us in good stead in several spheres. Let us be very clear. The constitution has been working tremendously well in certain places, but when it comes to civilizational aspects, it has been an abject failure. So the bell rings, that means yes.
No, so the last thing before the Q&A is just to think about the way forward. So I would again succinctly put it as putting dharma back into our statecraft, and constitutional morality can be substituted by dharma. Dharma is not religion, as all of us here know very well. Outside is the book Your Dharma and Mine by Shatavadhani Shri R. Ganesh ji. Anyone who has any doubts can read that book and understand the description and the exactitude and the minuteness with which dharma is described in all its 5 aspects. So according to me, that is the way forward. Constitutional morality should melt or go away into dharma. What do you say, Venkatesh ji?
It will be drinking whiskey with lassi. I am very clear about it. The dharmic way can probably have parts of constitutional morality, but dharmic way is independent of it. The dharmic...
So shouldn't we change the idea of constitutional morality? That is what I meant.
Obviously, but that we have been trying, though I have just put it very lightly. What I intend to say is that it is so much etched, and constitutional morality is Christian morality. Christian morality is now Western morality. Western morality is probably American morality, which we all follow. We don't even understand what we are talking, the idioms, the phrases that, let me be very blunt with you, that most of our elites, the judges, the media people, want endorsement from abroad. And till you are seeking an endorsement from abroad, a Sabrimala judgment was written not for the Indian audience, it was written for a Western audience. Let us be clear about it. To get Sabashi from a Western audience, if you start doing all these things, this is where we will end up. So to answer your question, unless we start cleansing from below, it's not a top-down approach, it has to be bottom-top approach, and say that all of us rewrite certain things and understand that this is where it should be. The benchmarks has to be changed. The coordinates of our destination has to change completely. And then only we start ending up with something bigger and better.
Thank you, Venkatesh ji. We draw to an end of our discussion, but the floor is open for questions, if any. If anyone would like to ask questions.
Hello, check. Yeah, my name is Srinivasan. I have come here with my wife Sharda, and incidentally, she is an advocate herself.
God bless her, and God bless you.
But fortunately, she is no more practicing in any courts. She has quit that.
God bless the courts.
Okay, and we have been enjoying this Western Ghats Lit Festival, and it has been a very enduring experience. See, we have been talking so much about say Christianization and whatnot, Hindu dharma, say dharmic. See, why is that still we are say thinking or not even thinking to announce boldly that Bharat is a say Hindu nation? See, why is there so much of thoughts is still going on, and why we are not say very bold and stubborn? See, what is stopping us?
Since it's a very, very easy question, I pass it on.
Not so easy. I'm just going to say one line and pass it back to you. So I think it's because of a lack of consensus. If you took a vote on this, I think I don't know about the city of Coimbatore, but I'm living in Delhi. You would not get a vote in favor of this. So there's a lack of consensus, understanding, awareness amongst people, and I think we have to work on that first before we announce any such thing. What about you, Venkateshji?
You can clap a bit louder. You don't have to be hesitant. See, I endorse your views, but my understanding is we are a Hindu nation. Just let us not have that doubt. What we have a doubt is whether the constitution adheres to the needs of a Hindu nation. There are two different things. We are a Hindu society, we are a Hindu nation, and we have all the trappings of a Hindu nation. Of course, it has its own challenges, problems, it has 1,000 years of history, psychologically it has a problem. So many things are there. But let us not say we are a cosmopolitan society or a leftist society or society which is denuding itself of its Hindu past. Or secular. But we are, sir, let us be clear, we are a Hindu nation. We have not made the declaration. But where do you want to declare? Let me know. Constitution. So read my book and distribute it.
Wonderful. We thank the speakers for their thought-provoking discussion and bringing to light that governance has always been rooted in dharma, not dogma. They reminded us that democracy is not a Western import, but part of India's very genes, that Danda and Sengol alike stand for the welfare of all, and that reclaiming our idioms and statecraft is essential to rediscovering the true spirit of Bharatavarsha. We request Shri Tamil Kumaranji to felicitate M.R. Venkateshji. We move on to the next event for the day. Sharp, fearless and rooted, Priyam Gandhi Modi brings us a mirror to contemporary Bharat through her keynote address on No Congress, No Nonsense, Chronicles from Political Bharat, interlacing fact, history and national sentiment and tracing how modern political narratives must reclaim clarity and courage. We welcome Priyam Gandhi ji to the podium.
Namaskar. Good afternoon, everybody. My keynote is before the lunch break. I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing, but I promise I will not keep you away from food for very long. So, the topic of my talk is No Congress, No Nonsense. Chronicles of a Political Bharat. So when I read the topic, I said, an entire day will pass and I'll never be able to finish this conversation. So where do I start? And that's where I started thinking that what is it that I want to say that will encapsulate the current worries in my head. So in that context, Bharat for me and Bharat for us is not just a piece of land. सिर्फ एक भूमि का टुकड़ा नहीं है. This is our mother with a heartbeat. For any living being that has a soul, जिसमें प्राण है, has to go through a karmic cycle. And perhaps because of that cycle of karma of our motherland, we've seen such a long 70-year Congress rule by the Nehru-Gandhi family. Only now we see the cycle of karma turning. Now we see Bharat and our mother reclaiming some of her lost glory. So I want to focus on the most pressing worries we have as a country today, and that is national security. So, people ask, कि तुम right-wingers, जब देखो, whenever you talk to, you guys, you're always criticizing the Congress, always criticizing the Gandhis, why you're talking about history, talk about the present and all of that. But a nation that does not learn from its history, does not move forward, continues to make the same mistakes and goes in a loop, and an unending loop. So we have to learn from history. So in that context, let's look at the last 6 months that we have experienced as a country, that we have experienced as a nation. What have we seen? We have seen Pahalgam attacks. Okay. What happened in Pahalgam? People were asked, are you Hindu, are you Muslim? If you're Hindu, you're killed. Yeah? Why did these attacks, why did the Pahalgam attack happen? Again, the answer lies in history. So we need to understand. Jammu and Kashmir has always been kept boiling. Okay, not just by our neighbors, but also by our internal enemies. They like it to boil. Okay, they use it as an excuse to attack us. So now, let's go back even further into history. Yesterday was Loha Purush Shri Sardar Patel ji's 150th birth anniversary. The great unifier of Bharat. But like Advocate Saab also mentioned, and even before that, Kashmir was a problem. And why was it a problem? Let's look at that. Maharaja Hari Singh repeatedly communicated to Sardar Patel, to Acharya Kripalani ji, and said, I want to join the Union of Bharat. I am willing to sign the accession document at the same time that other princely states are signing it. Please let me sign it. Pandit ji sent Mountbatten to Kashmir, and Maharaja Hari Singh went in his little open car to pick up Mr. Mountbatten. And in that 5-minute conversation, Maharaja Hari Singh understood that Mountbatten here is pitching for Jammu and Kashmir to join Pakistan. So he kept his mouth shut. He said, I have diarrhea. He sent Mountbatten on a hunting trip and he didn't see him for the rest of that visit. What happened after that? Again and again it was communicated that please, accept my accession. Kashmir wants to be a part of the Indian Union. And he was denied. Why? Because Panditji wanted to make his friend, his very good buddy, Sheikh Abdullah, the Prime Minister with a separate constitution. Alag Desh, alag constitution. Right? So, this is why it has always remained a boiling pot. He got his way. Sheikh Abdullah did lead Kashmir. We saw that he divided it on religious lines. And what was the thinking? What do you think was Panditji's thinking behind doing this? He said that the people of Jammu and Kashmir are not Hindus. They are Muslims. So they will not be able to integrate with Bharat. Hence, Kashmir cannot become an integral part of Bharat. That narrative is used even today by our own people. There are voices that arise from Bharat saying that POK ko wapas le lo. But then there are same voices that say, POK ko wapas liya to problem ban jayega because these are not our people, they are not Hindus. This is our land. These are our people. It is ours. So, wapas le lo, it has to be ours. So, this is not an argument that one should be making. Let's move forward once again and why this remains a national security concern for us even today. Panditji took the whole Kashmir issue to the United Nations after Pakistan launched their attack with the help of the British. Under the wrong section, experts here will understand, he internationalized this issue. He went to the UN saying that this is a case of disputed territory. This is not disputed territory. This is an aggressor coming on our land, forcefully taking it. It is not a dispute. We have to fight the aggressor and kick them out. If we took it under the correct section, India could have been able to continue to use its army and its armed forces and throw out the aggressor, which was Pakistan, who had no business in being on our land. So that is your historical context as to why Kashmir continues to simmer today. Now, let's move forward. What happened after Pahalgam attack? What happened? Operation Sindoor. India went into army territory and we conducted Operation Sindoor. What happened during Operation Sindoor? I'll leave this to the experts to discuss this, and I know there are many interesting conversations on Operation Sindoor today and tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to attending. But what happened during Operation Sindoor? We had to repeatedly state that our actions are not escalatory in nature. Why? Why did we have to do that? Why did we have to repeatedly say that our actions were not, they were escalatory? We did go into enemy territory. We did want to hit them. We did want to hit their army bases, air force bases. They were escalatory in nature. So why did we have to put on this farce? Because we are trying to show ourselves as a nation that we aren't. Okay? And especially between India and Pakistan. With Pakistan, very early on, it has always had this client-state mentality. Whoever pays it money, it dances for them. So, because of this client-state mentality, and now we know that it lets China, it lets the United States, it lets the Middle East use its strategic assets. So we knew that if we build the narrative that no, we are going into Pakistan, when we are attacking Pakistan, Pakistan has all these clients that will come to its defense, some which are visible and some which are acting under an invisibility cloak. So we had to continue to maintain that no, our actions are not escalatory in nature. Why do you think Pakistan got this favoritism with the world? Of course, it dances for who pays it money. But for a very long period of time, Bharat and its political leadership, the Congress, chose to maintain and keep us in this bubble of being isolated under the garb of non-alignment. Non-alignment was not the way to go. Multi-alignment was. We had to be talking to all parts of the world repeatedly, but we chose to isolate ourselves, isolate our markets, right? We use license Raj and all kinds of tools to completely isolate ourselves. And using that as an opportunity, Pakistan made all these clients and these friends that come to its defense. What happened after Operation Sindoor? President Trump swooped in and announced that he has brokered a ceasefire. Who is President Trump to swoop in? And why? Right? Now let's look at decades of the India-US relationship and how Congress chose to build it. India-US relationship was absolutely not consequential for the Congress leadership for many, many, many decades because US had chosen Pakistan as its client state. Somewhere in the middle with John F. Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy met Mr. Pandit Nehru, developed some kind of a personal affinity, and then the 1962 China War happened. Just when some relationship was starting to be rebuilt, Pandit Nehru asked the United States to send in American planes to fight the Indo-China war on India's behalf. And that killed the growing relationship for many decades. It's only over the last 15 or so years that we're able to start building this relationship. I'll come to why this relationship is consequential a little bit later as well. So only over the last 15 years have we been able to truly follow what we say is strategic autonomy and talk to all parts of the world and rebuild this Indo-US relationship. Before Operation Sindoor, President Trump had announced multiple times that we are going to sign a mini trade deal. After Operation Sindoor, not only were tariffs shot up to 25%, but he also applied a 25% punitive sanction on us for buying Russian oil. So 50%. Anyway, 25% you're out of the competitive market to sell your goods. 50% is ridiculous. You can make it 500, then it doesn't matter. Why did he do that? Why did he hike up and punish us? Because we refused to tell him that yes, you mediated this war. Yes, you deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, you are a architect of global peace, right? Why did he have that expectation from us in the first place? And how do we need to handle the Indo-US relationship? Were we wrong that we built it over the last decade and a half, or are we wrong now that we think that we don't need the United States and let's go sit with China, right? There is so much distrust because of this decades of the Congress political relationship between the Indo-US relationship that every time there is progress, there comes a hit. And right now, let's look at our economic size. Since we're talking about trade deals, we are a $4 trillion economy. China is an $18 trillion economy. The United States is 37 trillion. Right? 37 trillion. We are moving to a world which used to be from a unipolar world which was US-centric after the Soviet Union collapsed to now almost a bipolar world between US and China, where China sees itself as a regional player here and the US itself sees itself as the big boss of the entire world still, and we're trying to say that we're still finding ground. Sometimes I feel that the enemies are within us. We have to realize that there is a big difference between 4 trillion, 18 trillion and 37 trillion. Can we pick up a fight? What does our Shastras teach us? Can you pick up a losing battle? No, you can't pick up a losing battle. Had we made these kinds of arrangements and opened up markets long ago, we had the potential to grow much, much faster. Finally, we've come around to that. Now, what happened after that? We went to the SCO summit and we became friends with China again. Right? Now let's look at China. Is China our friend? Can China ever be our friend? It can never be our friend. Let's look at what it did in 1962. Since yesterday was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's 150th birth anniversary, I was going through some of his letters. And I read a letter of him warning Pandit Nehru on Tibet in, I think, 1950. And he said, you're mishandling Tibet and it's no longer a buffer. You're giving it away. You're letting China take it. It is no longer a buffer between us and China. The Himalayas are not going to come to protect us. The fact that you have used all of your international standing to lobby for China to get it the UN Security Council seat, to show your goodwill to China. This is your mistake. Don't do that. Lobby for yourself. Lobby for India. Lobby for Bharat. Why are you lobbying for China? And this is a very, very big mistake. However, Panditji chose to form his friendships with China and was completely taken for a ride. China has always had an expansionist salami slicing policy, where it thinks that it'll take a little bit of your land that nobody notices, then a little bit more, then a little bit more. That's salami slicing strategy. And it was always going to use this with us. We were completely taken aback. Panditji was so surrounded by his family and friends as advisors then, that they said, you know what, just to show that we are also capable, let's build some forward posts, on our border with China. And we can say that we are prepared for war. So they built these little shacks on the border, which were destroyed in one day. In one day, China destroyed us. Okay? It came to a point that not only was our chicken neck cut off, the entire northeast China was going to take over. All of the northeast. That's when we wrote that desperate letter to President Kennedy, that please send the US planes to fight for us. It was out of China's goodwill then that they decided that they are going to retreat again and the northeast is going to be part of Bharat. So again, China continues to remain a concern. When I say that I'm very concerned about our national security situation today, and the roots of that lie in historical realities since we've gained independence. So now the second, the second Chronicles from a political Bharat. We, especially the right-wing universe, we think that we are the third pole of the world today. Are we the third pole of the world today? No. Can we be the third pole of the world? Yes. But can we be that today? No. It will take strategy. You will have to be the third pole by selling your products to countries that have the power to pay you. That's how you be the third pole. That's how you strategize. Countries who aspire to be poles of power create institutions and international orders. When America aspired to be a pole, it created NATO. It created institutions like the international institutions, okay? And then they create these institutions that are either economic institutions or they are security institutions. China did the same thing. China created an SCO, right? US created the NATO. US created the European Union, which is an economic institution. Is Bharat creating those institutions? Yes. We foresee that the global south is an institution. But is it a powerful institution today? Our country is going to go to war for us? No. So, this type of strategic thinking never existed in Bharat after independence. It is only now that we see that we have a dream, that we have a collective dream, that we can become a third pole of power. And to achieve that collective dream, we continue to take those steps. But are we there yet? No. Can we pick up the fights? Can we pick up fights with the big two poles of power in the world today? No, we can't. So that is the reality. When we see the political opposition, yesterday the NSA, National Security Advisor, made a very interesting statement on democracy. He said that you don't need to enjoy majority to come to power in this country. You just need to divide the rest. And he said, and follow the money. So you'll come to know how the divisions are happening. That's what the opposition is doing. Dividing the country. That's what it has always done. It divides us. Because that's your road to political power. And that is the reality today. We see on one side the Bharatiya Janata Party, you see a right, center of right ecosystem that has a vision for us, that has a vision where India needs to stand, where Bharat needs to be in the international order, and is taking steps forward. And on the other side, and yesterday on a panel, a congressman got really livid and angry when I said that, you had Panditji, who was a Nepo kid. First he had his father lobbying for him when he was alive to make him Congress chief, took away that from Sardar Patel. So there was no merit there. And after he passed away, after Motilal Nehru passed away, Panditji continued to tell Gandhiji that you are only my father now. All my decisions you make, and think that you are my father and think like a father and make my decisions. He used emotional blackmail as a legitimate tool. So I said, Panditji was a Nepo kid, and the entire family, that Nepo kid attitude of entitlement continues to persist in the Congress ecosystem today. Thank you. So that is the other side of the political reality of Bharat today, that we have to fight. And it's this side that has this privilege and this entitlement that Nepo children have, that this land is ours to grab. This land is ours to divide. We will tell you what to say and what not, how to divide and on what lines. That is what we have to fight. So unifying the country remains a challenge, and just like our previous panelists have said, what is the one unifier? Hinduism. Being Bharatiya. Bharatiya languages, they don't divide, they unify. Bharatiya culture doesn't divide, unifies. Maharashtra can have Shivaji, in the south there can be multiple languages, but those are what is unifying us. So we must look at our differences as unifiers and continue to remember that the political opposition today, like they always have, are divisive. There was a question in the last panel that why aren't we declaring ourselves as a Hindu nation? Nobody asked me to answer this, but I'm going to take a shot. Why don't we declare ourselves as the Hindu nation? There is one answer: vote bank politics. So the way to political leadership is division. So how can you declare that you are a united nation? What will the opposition do? How will they come to power? That is the answer to your question. With that, I will end my talk. Thank you very much for listening. And now I will let you go to lunch. Thank you. Before we release a few books. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
PMG.
Thank you very much.
Can we take a few questions?
Of course. Go ahead.
So the floor is open for questions.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Amazing speech. Thank you. And
Namaste. Thank you.
And my question, and some of my peers also might have thought of the same question, is In your speech, you mentioned that goodwill of China, it was goodwill of China that resulted in India still having the Northeast for ourselves. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yes. So in 1962, like I said, all of the forward posts that we had built as little shacks along the border to instigate China were literally wiped off in less than 48 hours. At that time, Panditji requested President Kennedy and said, please send US fighter jets to fight on India's behalf. And that time there was negotiation going on a ceasefire. And China retreated, did not take our northeast, but also they claimed that 40,000 kilometers of land, in the heights, and it also came forward towards Arunachal and made it the new line of control. So it took some of our land, a lot of our land, permanently in order to, retreat and kind of show the world that it has agreed to let Bharat keep our northeast.
But Priyamji, they also had some logistical problems of support for its army. Therefore, it was not able to maintain its positions and it had to go back because they didn't have logistical support. That's also one angle.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Mike, you had mentioned that India lobbied for China's place in the United Nations Security Council. Was an opportunity there for India to become a member of Security Council, which India gave it up?
Of course, we had built these. Absolutely.
Achha.
I mean, we could have, there are so many letters and interactions that Panditji has had with all of the Western leaders to lobby for a place for the UN. And we wanted to show China that, Indo-Chinese bhai-bhai situation. So we wanted to build that kind of goodwill. That was our thought process then. So to show that we are building that goodwill for them, we lobbied for them because we were confident that we enjoyed that place, in the international world order. That was, I think, one of our biggest mistakes. Yes. So I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that again?
Doesn't matter. It will announce that it wants to invade Kashmir. It wants to trouble India. It doesn't even hesitate to tell in a world form. But we are a very good boy. We always try to exhibit all good qualities. Is it not affecting our security?
Yes, it does. I think, but it is inherent in us, that we look. So, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not just a term for us, right? We have that self-confidence. And that self-confidence just doesn't come from speeches of political leaders. This self-confidence comes because we have seen incredible wealth in our civilizational history. We know how to make that kind of money. We know how to trade with the world. We know what the world wants from us. So this is this confidence that we can be a good boy but still reach the heights and lead the world comes from civilizational memory. We've done that before. We'll do it again. But all this jingoism that, America ko dikha diya or China ko dikha diya or inko dikha diya, unko dikha, I think we all need to calm down. We have reached the pinnacles of success in our civilizational past by understanding what the world wants from us, by harnessing the monsoon winds, using the Indian peninsula, trading with every part of the world. We need to do that again. Nobody should stop us and nobody should distract us from becoming an economic powerhouse. That is the path to becoming a solid pole of the world.
Hello.
Yeah.
See, my question is, See, is it a misnomer that you addressed Jawaharlal Nehru as Panditji, or was it a sarcasm?
So you interpret it as you want.
Thank you so much, Priyamji. We request Sri Shyam Sundar, former CEO of L&T Coimbatore, to felicitate Priyamji.
Thank you.
We thank Priyamji for the
Thank
incisive
you.
discussion on Bharat's national security and strategic direction. She highlighted how historical missteps from Kashmir's handling to delayed global positioning shape today's challenges and urged a return to unity rooted in Bharatiya culture and strategic self-reliance so that India may truly emerge as the third pole of a multipolar world. Up next, we celebrate a moment of creative culmination, the birth of a new work that carries the fragrance of Bharat's thought and imagination. It's time for the book launches.